The crisp autumn breeze carried a sense of foreboding as I stepped into our once happy home. Something felt amiss, a nagging feeling that refused to be ignored. My husband Mark had been distant lately, his excuses for late nights at the office growing increasingly flimsy. Ignoring the knot of unease tightening in my stomach, I pushed open the door, hoping for a warm embrace to chase away my doubts. Instead, I was met with a scene that shattered my illusions. Voices echoed from the living room, voices I recognized all too well. Creeping closer, I peeked around the corner, my heart pounding in my chest. There they were, Mark and Alice, sitting close together on the couch, their laughter ringing in my ears like a cruel taunt. "Mark, we have to be careful." Alice's voice was low, tinged with a hint of nervousness. "What if Joan finds out?" Mark's response was laced with arrogance, his hand resting possessively on Alice's knee. "Don't worry about Joan. She's clueless, as always. She'll never suspect a thing." My blood ran cold at his words, the truth crashing over me like a tidal wave. My husband, the man I had loved and trusted, was having an affair with Alice, our neighbor and supposed friend. Anger and betrayal warred within me, threatening to consume me whole. Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I stepped into the room, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Mark, Alice, care to explain what's going on here?" Their faces paled at the sight of me, guilt written clear as day across their features. Mark stuttered for a response, but I held up a hand, silencing him before he could utter another word. "I don't need an explanation," I said, my voice cold and composed. "I already know everything I need to know." With that, I turned on my heel and walked out the door, leaving behind the shattered remnants of the life I once knew. Little did I know this was only the beginning of the journey that would change everything. The days that followed the discovery of Mark's affair were a blur of pain and confusion. Every moment felt like a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had torn apart my world. As I navigated the tumultuous waters of divorce proceedings, Mark's bitterness only seemed to intensify, his anger directed squarely at me. "It's your fault to Joan," his words were like venom, each syllable dripping with contempt. I stood before him, feeling the weight of his accusation like a heavy chain around my neck. "My fault? How can you say that, Mark? You're the one who cheated." His eyes flashed with anger, his fists clenching at his sides. "If you could have given me a child, none of this would have happened. But you're barren, Joan. You've always been barren." The pain in his voice cut through me like a knife, a cruel reminder of the dreams we had once shared. Dreams of a family, of laughter and love filling our home. But those dreams had turned to dust, shattered by the harsh reality of infertility. "I tried, Mark. I tried so hard." My voice wavered with emotion, tears threatening to spill over. "But infertility is not something I can control." His laughter was bitter and hollow, a cruel echo of the love we had once shared. "Excuses, Joan. That's all I ever hear from you. Excuses for why you couldn't give me what I wanted." I felt a surge of anger rising within me, threatening to consume me whole. "How dare you, Mark? How dare you blame me for your infidelity? This is on you, not me." But my words fell on deaf ears as Mark continued to hurl accusations and insults my way. In that moment, I realized that our marriage was beyond repair. The trust we had once shared lay shattered at our feet, and there was no going back. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I felt the weight of Mark's blame pressing down on me, threatening to suffocate me with its cruelty. But deep down, I knew that his anger was nothing more than a desperate attempt to deflect blame from his own actions. In the end, I walked away with a meager settlement, bruised but not defeated. The scars of our failed marriage would always remain, a reminder of the pain we had inflicted upon each other. But amidst the wreckage of our shattered dreams, I found a glimmer of hope, the promise of a new beginning, free from the toxic cycle of blame and betrayal. In the aftermath of my divorce from Mark, I was adrift in a sea of uncertainty and pain. But amidst the wreckage of my failed marriage, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of Robert. He entered my life like a breath of fresh air, his kindness and compassion offering solace in the midst of my turmoil. Our first meeting was serendipitous, a chance encounter at a local coffee shop that would change the course of my life forever. As we sat across from each other, sipping our drinks and exchanging stories, I felt a connection unlike anything I had ever experienced before. "Joan, it's been a pleasure getting to know you." Robert said, his eyes warm and sincere. "I hope we can do this again sometime." His words filled me with a sense of warmth and belonging, a feeling I had long forgotten amidst the chaos of my failed marriage. "I would like that," I replied, unable to suppress the smile that tugged at the corners of my lips. From that moment on, Robert became a constant presence in my life, his unwavering support and understanding serving as a beacon of light in the darkness. Together we explored the city, tried new restaurants, and shared laughter and tears as we navigated the ups and downs of life. As our bond deepened, I found myself falling for Robert in a way I had never thought possible. His kindness and compassion touched me in ways I could never have imagined, filling the void left by Mark's betrayal with a love that was pure and true. I never thought I'd find love again after what happened with Mark. I confessed to Robert one evening, the weight of my past still heavy on my heart. Robert reached out and took my hand in his touch sending a shiver down my spine. "Joan, you deserve happiness just as much as anyone else. Don't let the mistakes of your past dictate your future." His words resonated with me, stirring something deep within my soul. With Robert by my side, I began to believe in the possibility of a second chance at love, free from the pain and betrayal that had plagued my past. But as I ventured back into the workforce, the shadows of my past still lingered, threatening to cast a pall over the newfound joy in my life. Little did I know, the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and obstacles, testing the strength of our love in ways we could never have imagined. Returning to the workforce was meant to be a fresh start, a chance to reclaim my independence and rebuild my life on my own terms. But as I stepped back into the familiar confines of the office, I quickly realized that the ghosts of my past still lingered, casting a shadow over my every move. Alice's influence permeated the air, her connections and alliances shaping the narrative of my return. Whispers followed me wherever I went, the gossip and speculation painting me as the villain in a story I never asked to be a part of. It seemed as though no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't shake off the stigma of my past. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk, immersed in my work, I overheard snippets of conversation drifting through the air. "Did you hear about Joan?" One coworker whispered to another, her voice tinged with malice. "I heard she was the reason Mark cheated on her. Poor Alice must have been driven to it." My blood ran cold at their words, the injustice of their assumptions burning like a fire in my chest. How could they be so quick to judge, so eager to assign blame without knowing the full story? Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I approached my boss, hoping to address the rumors head-on. "I've heard some unsettling things being said about me, and I wanted to set the record straight," I began, my voice steady despite the tremble in my hands. But my boss cut me off before I could finish, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry, Joan, but I've heard the rumors too. And unfortunately, perception is reality in this office." His words hit me like a punch to the gut, the realization sinking in that no matter how hard I tried, I would always be viewed through the lens of my past. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that my reputation had been tarnished by the actions of others. As the days turned into weeks, the discrimination only seemed to intensify, the walls closing in on me with each passing moment. But amidst the darkness, a flicker of hope emerged in the form of Robert, whose unwavering support served as a lifeline in the storm. "We'll get through this together, Joan," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Don't let their prejudice define who you are. You're stronger than they could ever imagine." With Robert by my side, I found the strength to persevere, refusing to be silenced by their prejudice. For I knew that true strength lay not in succumbing to the darkness, but in rising above it, shining bright despite the odds stacked against me. The anticipation hung thick in the air as I stepped into the grand ballroom of the wedding venue. My heart raced with nervous excitement, mingled with a sense of apprehension at the prospect of facing my past. But as I scanned the room, my eyes fell upon a familiar figure, and my breath caught in my throat. There they were, Mark and Alice, standing side by side amidst a sea of guests, their presence casting a shadow over the joyous occasion. My initial instinct was to turn and flee, to avoid the confrontation I knew was inevitable. But something inside me urged me to stand my ground, to face my demons head-on. Summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I approached them, my steps slow and deliberate. Mark's eyes widened in surprise as he caught sight of me, his expression shifting from shock to discomfort in an instant. "Joan," he said, his voice strained with tension. "What are you doing here?" I squared my shoulders, refusing to let his presence intimidate me. "I'm here to celebrate the union of two people who actually love and respect each other," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm raging within me. Alice's laughter rang out like a mocking echo, her eyes alight with malice. "Oh, how quaint," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Still bitter about the past, I see." But before I could respond, a voice interrupted our exchange, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Excuse me," said a young man, stepping forward with a determined expression. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and I have something to say." We turned to look at him, curiosity flickering in our eyes as he spoke. "I'm Mark and Alice's son," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of sadness. "And I have to say, I'm ashamed of the way you're treating Joan. She doesn't deserve this." His words hung heavy in the air, a poignant reminder of the impact our actions had on those around us. For a moment, there was silence as we absorbed his words, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Then Mark spoke up, his voice filled with remorse. "You're right, son. I'm sorry, Joan. I'm sorry for everything." Alice's expression softened, a hint of regret flickering in her eyes. I'm sorry too, Joan. I never meant for things to turn out this way." In that moment, a sense of closure washed over me, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The wounds of the past were still raw, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. With a nod of gratitude to Mark and Alice's son, I turned and walked away, leaving behind the ghosts of my past as I stepped into the light of a new day. As I stood amidst the bustling crowd of wedding guests, a sense of pride swelled within me, threatening to burst forth like a radiant beacon of light. Joseph and Gloria, my children, stood by my side, their presence a testament to the strength and resilience of the love that had brought us together. "Mom, are you okay?" Joseph asked, his concern evident in the furrow of his brow. "You seem tense." I smiled, reaching out to tussle his hair affectionately. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just lost in thought, that's all." Gloria glanced up at me, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Are you thinking about Mark and Alice?" The mention of their names sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the pain and betrayal that had once torn our family apart. But as I looked into the eyes of my children, I felt a surge of determination wash over me, banishing the ghosts of my past once and for all. "In a way, yes," I replied, my voice soft but resolute. "But I'm also thinking about how lucky I am to have the two of you in my life." Joseph grinned, his face lighting up with pride. "We're pretty lucky to have you too, Mom." Gloria looped her arm through mine, her touch warm and reassuring. "Yeah, we're a pretty awesome team, aren't we?" Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes as I looked at my children, my heart overflowing with love and gratitude. In that moment, I realized that despite the challenges we had faced, we had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. As the wedding festivities continued around us, I wrapped my arms around Joseph and Gloria, holding them close as we danced together beneath the stars. In their laughter and smiles, I found solace and joy, a reminder that no matter what the future held, we would always have each other. With a heart full of pride and gratitude, I whispered a silent vow to cherish every moment we shared, knowing that as long as we had each other, we could weather any storm that came our way. And as we danced beneath the moonlit sky, I knew that no matter what the future held, our love would always be the guiding light that led us home. As the final strains of music faded into the night, signaling the end of the wedding festivities, a sense of calm descended upon me like a warm blanket. Surrounded by friends and loved ones, I felt a renewed sense of hope stirring within me, a promise of brighter days ahead. "Mom, that was so much fun!" Gloria exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "I never knew weddings could be so magical." I smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, sweetheart. It's moments like these that make all the challenges we've faced worth it." Joseph nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, it was definitely a night to remember." As we made our way towards the exit, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought us to this moment. The road had been long and arduous, filled with twists and turns that had tested our resolve at every step. But through it all, we have remained steadfast in our love for each other, emerging stronger and more united than ever before. As we stepped out into the cool night air, a sense of anticipation filled my heart, the promise of a new beginning beckoning us forward. With Joseph and Gloria by my side, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together, armed with love, resilience, and unwavering determination. "Are you ready for what comes next, Mom?" Joseph asked, his voice tinged with excitement. I smiled, squeezing his hand tightly. "I am more than ready, Joseph. With you and Gloria by my side, I know we can handle anything life throws our way." Gloria looped her arm through mine, her gaze steady and determined. "Bring it on," she said, her voice filled with confidence. "We're ready for whatever comes next." And with those words ringing in my ears, we stepped forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever the future held with open arms. For in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, a family bound by love and the promise of a new beginning.